Thank you all for coming. I'm Walter Hang. I'm the president of Toxics Targeting. We're an environmental database firm in Ithaca, New York. And today we're posting for public review documentation that improperly treated wastewater hazards near the Watkins Glen drinking water intake in Seneca Lake had basically been documented in 2007. Concerns were documented again in 2012 and 2016. And so these concerns were related to pathogens, microorganisms that could cause health problems, silt and sediment, harmful algal blooms, and non-point source pollution problems. And these concerns have never been resolved. So the recently canceled concert in Watkins Glen underscores the immense economic consequences of Governor Cuomo's failure to safeguard drinking water. And that's how come a broad coalition of more than 100 groups, individuals, academics, and elected officials have written the governor to include Seneca Lake and all bodies of water with water quality impairments and harmful algal blooms in the National 303D Registry of Impaired Waters, and that has to be cleaned up within 5 years. So this is an actual priority water body list profile for Seneca Lake, and this is the southern portion of the lake. And you can see in 2016, they identified pathogens, harmful algal blooms, low dissolved oxygen demand, silt and sediment from municipal discharges, notably the Watkins Glen wastewater treatment plant, and other unknown sources. And so it says public bathing and water supply use in this portion of Seneca Lake is thought to be threatened by pathogens and other pollutants from inadequate wastewater treatment facilities. Basically, it said also, recent concerns have been raised regarding algal blooms, including blue-green algae. And last year, Seneca Lake had extensive harmful algal blooms. So this profile and other information are posted at toxicstargeting.com. Quote, regarding the source assessment, the Watkins Glen wastewater treatment plant has a history of state pollutant discharge elimination system permit violations dating back to 2007 for various parameters, including settlable solids, fecal and total coliform, and total residual chlorine. The wastewater treatment plant outfall, that's the discharge pipe, is currently located between a public access beach in Seneca Lake and a drinking water intake. In 2012, the wastewater treatment plant has reported discharge of settlable solids of more than 20 milliliters per liter, paren, limit is 0.3, close paren. Coliform in the thousands and fecal coliform in the several thousands. These periodic exceedances appear to be related to significant infiltration, inflow issues in the collection system, and outdated disinfection equipment. Concerns have been raised regarding non-point runoff of nutrients into the lake. And believe it or not, the authorities decided that, quote, this portion of Seneca Lake is not included in the current 2016 New York State Section 303D list of impaired waters that need what's called a total maximum daily load comprehensive watershed cleanup. In addition, the middle part of the lake is also threatened regarding water supply, public bathing, and it's because, quote, this portion of Seneca Lake is assessed as threatened due to water supply concerns that are considered to be threatened by elevated salt concentrations from salt mining in the watershed. Public bathing is also evaluated as threatened by occasional growths of aquatic plants and algal blooms. Current sodium concentration exceed EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, advisory levels for specific groups of people, e.g. persons on salt-free diets, period. Water supply use of Seneca Lake is also considered to be threatened due to elevated potential for phosphorus, disinfection byproduct, precursors, and pesticide contamination. And again, recent concerns have been raised regarding algal blooms, including blue-green algae. So the bottom line is, it's hard to believe, but the authorities knew about these problems and failed to resolve them for more than a decade. So after the recent cancellation of the concert last weekend, the authorities reportedly said that this incident was unavoidable, and I beg to differ. These problems should have prompted the governor to take immediate emergency action to make sure that public health was protected. And so a concert involving 30,000 people being canceled is bad enough. But if that same problem had occurred a couple of weeks earlier, it would have been a 100,000 person NASCAR event that could have gotten canceled. So again, we're emphasizing to the governor, New York has a drinking water crisis of unprecedented proportions. You've received a coalition letter from 1,400 plus groups, elected officials, and the like, and we respectfully request that you add Seneca Lake and all other impaired water bodies with harmful algal blooms to the National 303D Impaired Waters Registry. And a comprehensive cleanup has to be adopted within 5 years. This kind of ongoing crisis is simply intolerable. This is what a harmful algal bloom looks like. It's just a profusion of cyanobacteria. This is very neurotoxic. If you drink the water, if you touch the water, you can become sick. So Seneca Lake last year had extensive harmful algal blooms. This is one on Circa Lake. And in just 1 week, Owasco Lake and Circa Lake had harmful algal blooms. So we now have Skaneateles Lake, Cayuga Lake, Chautauqua Lake. You can see these harmful algal blooms are all over the state of New York. The governor is powerless to prevent these harmful algal blooms because he simply hasn't adopted comprehensive cleanup plans. The last thing I want to note is that Toxics Targeting has posted several hundred uncontrolled agricultural manure spills at toxicstargeting.com. And you can see that some of these are threatening Seneca Lake. So what happens is the manure has very high levels of phosphorus, and that can promote the growth of these harmful algal blooms, which results in the water quality problems that are noted in the priority water list. Here's one involving manure. 7 to 10 million gallons, an uncontrolled release in Martinsburg, New York, north of Syracuse. Here's another one, 7,500 gallons, never cleaned up. Product is entering creek, manure. And basically, once these problems happen, they're almost impossible to clean up. I want to emphasize in conclusion, we have nothing against farming. Agriculture is an incredibly important component of New York's economy. But the bottom line is we have a water quality crisis. The governor's proposed harmful algal bloom program is never going to be effective. The only way to solve these problems is you have to conduct a watershed assessment. You have to find out where the pollution comes from, and you got to clean it up. He has no plan to do that. He's just going to throw some money at some small-scale land acquisition, pilot-scale programs. These have failed to prevent New York's water quality crisis. He's got to take the advice of the coalition that says you have to clean up all these watersheds. And until that happens, we're going to lurch from one crisis to the next. So in conclusion, the Watkins Glen drinking water crisis has to be a huge wake-up call to the governor. He's got to respond. Otherwise, I think he's just going to be facing unrelenting criticism. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.